Hey everybody, Greg Ray here with Outdoor Solutions Long Range Schools. We are bringing you another tip from Tactacam. One of the most common questions or comments on our YouTube channel is if we could explain some of the terminology that we use. So some of the terminology is like maybe subtensions, minute of angle or MOA or mil radian, things that we probably take for granted because we've been doing this for a long time, but we're getting more and more new people coming to hunting and shooting that don't know what we're talking about. So what we're going to do, thanks to your comments, is bring you a whole new series from a beginner's perspective. So today we're going to cover minute of angle, or as we refer to it, MOA, which is just simply a measurement tool that we use when on the range. Technically, MOA is 1.047 inches in measurement at 100 yards, but we keep it simple during our classes and we just call it 1 inch. We get rid of the 0.047. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use one of the paper targets that we use at 100 yards that's gridded out in 1 inch squares and show you exactly what an MOA looks like. Actually, I'll give you another reference. You'll hear a lot of the factory hunting rifles today will say that they guarantee a minute of angle at 100 yards, maybe with a 3-round group. So for an example of the Benelli Lupo that we use, they guarantee a 3-round sub-MOA group at 100 yards. So what I'm going to do is show you exactly what that looks like on paper, and then we'll move on to some of our steel targets from there. So on this grid target, which like I said, we use at 100 yards, you can see these are all gridded out in 1 inch squares. So an MOA at 100 yards, like I said, we're going to call 1 inch. So if I was to do a 3-round group with that Lupo, they're guaranteeing that with good factory match ammo, that if I'm a good shooter, that I'll be able to get 3 rounds within this 1 inch square. So 1 MOA at 100 yards equals 1 inch. Now to move on a step further, let's say we move on out to 200 yards. At 200 yards, 1 MOA now equals 2 inches. So the further you go out, an MOA is still an MOA, but now at 200 yards, an MOA is 2 inches. So you can probably track where I'm going here. Let's say we move on out to 300 yards, an MOA now becomes 3 inches. So that's what 1 MOA at 300 yards looks like. We'll keep doing the math. Let's go on down to, don't judge my non-straight line there. At 400 yards, 1 MOA is now 4 inches. So you can probably see as we continue on to do the math, our classes are 1,000 yards. You go all the way out to 1,000 yards, 1 MOA is going to be 10 inches. So technically, with the rifles we're using, you should be able to get your group within a 10-inch square. So I'll give you guys a free tip of how we teach in our class to help students understand minute of angle a little quicker. One of the things that we do is utilize a 3 MOA target system at each yardage. We start our steel at 300 yards, which this is a 300-yard target that I have here. So if it's a 3 MOA target at 300 yards, you take the 3 MOA times the 300, means that it is a 9-inch square. So we do the same thing all the way down. So we go to 700 yards, times 3, it's going to be a 21-inch square. At 1,000 yards, we're going to be at a 30-inch square, so that everybody knows that is uniform in MOA going all the way down. The benefit of that is that, let's say for an example, you have an impact on one of the edges, you know that half of 3 MOA is going to be 1.5. So from the edge to the center, your correction is going to be 1.5 MOA to your shooter. Doesn't matter if it's left, right, up, or down. Same way if you have a splash right in between the edge and the center, we know that half of 1.5 MOA is going to be 0.75, so you're going to be 3/4 of an MOA if we have a splash right here in the center. So before I send a couple of downrange, one thing that you definitely need to know is the click value of your elevation and your windage. On the Zeiss Conquest V4, it is a 1/4 minute of angle per click. So each time that I click it, at 100 yards, I'm going up, down, left, or right a quarter minute. So that's one thing you definitely need to know. And as you can see here, it's actually etched on the elevation dial. Most of them will probably have some type of marking. If you don't have a external dial, when you pull the cap off, it'll probably be on the inside. So make sure you look for it and know what elevation that you're adjusting or windage that you're adjusting. So anyway, with that being said, let's send a couple down range. What I'm going to do at 300 yards, I'm going to put one on the edge and then show you what the correction would be whenever I put one on center as well. So let's give that a look. Another thing too, I don't have a spotter, so I am hooked up to the Tactacam Spotter LR, and I can spot my own impacts. Also, we do have the FTS hooked up so you guys can see what I'm seeing. So anyway, let's get these sent down range. All right, so what we're going to do is first acquire the 300-yard target. As you can see right there, we've got our marker, 300 yards. There's our little range piggy at about 175 yards. So as I mentioned earlier, each one of these targets is 3 MOA in size. So at 300 yards, those are going to be 9-inch targets. Now what I'm going to do, right here on the center, as you can see, I'm going to line up on the left edge and send one. Okay, so there you can see I caught the left edge. So since we already know that that is a 3 MOA target, my spotter would tell me that I need to come right 1.5 minutes, because we know from any edge to the center is going to be 1.5 minutes. So that, I hope, is helpful for you all on minute of angle. That is about the simplest explanation that I can give you guys. Hope it was helpful. We'll be back next month with another Tactacam tip.